It was really emotional for me when I pulled into Ruby to see Susan there, you know, with her girls. Both of us had been fighting for our health for a year's time. And I never have understood exactly why some people are given a second life. That's kind of how I feel mine is after cancer. But some people are called home earlier than I would think they should be. But for me, that's a responsibility to my passion to give back, because I've been given a second chance, and I want to give back to and make it be significant. We're working in White Mountain with the dogs here. You know, straw was an interesting thing. We didn't race with straw in the early years. In fact, if we wanted straw, we paid to send it out, and it was expensive. And so we would send it, we would anticipate where we wanted to send it, maybe for our 24. And I can remember trying to get straw into Roan River. That was a very expensive venture. And we would be maybe sharing an airplane and seeing if, you know, somebody could take a bale of straw to Roan or a bale of straw to Cripple. At the most, we maybe had 3 bales of straw on the trail. And, you know, so you had to have dogs that could just lay down and sleep on the snow. And straw was a luxury. Now straw is provided and it's natural in all races. But one of the advantages of that was you had dogs that could just curl up and sleep. And so consequently, you could stop them whenever they needed to. Nowadays, sometimes you stop and the dogs don't even want to think about sleeping unless you've got some straw to show them. You know, they've lost the... I shouldn't necessarily say the adaptation to sleep, because some of them can, but they've lost the natural deal of just resting, and to the point that if you give them 15 pieces of straw, they'll lay down. So if you carry a pocket full, you can get your team to lay down. But, you know, it's no insulation, and it's just psychological. And, you know, I think there's advantages sometimes. I like straw. I like to see my dogs camping on straw. But there's advantages to teaching your dog to be able to just sleep and rest and recover without it, because you may be without it. And you may have to do so. And you can be storm-bound between checkpoints. The advantage of your team is to stop them. But if they won't lay down because they only learn to lay down on straw, you're kind of stuck, you know, because even stopping them is not giving them the recovery or the protection that you would want them to have. So nowadays, most of every race I'm in, straw's provided. It's not an extra expense to us, and we get kind of used to it, and we always train with it. But I would say that it's an advantage to you somewhere along the line. If you're a long-distance musher, you will have to stop a team where there isn't any straw. Out on the sea ice, maybe I spent 2 days on the sea ice between Shaktoolik and Koyak in 1987, and we were snowbound with, it was myself and Rick Mackey and Levon Barvey and Jerry Austin. There was nothing to bed our dogs with. We were there for 2 days before they broke so we could move. You know, our dogs needed to know how to rest. They needed to know how to lay down and protect themselves. Same situation with coats. We never used to have coats for dogs. I think it's better to travel with coats. I always travel with coats, and I sometimes have 2 coats, you know, have enough so I could double coat dogs. But you know, how do I say this? I think you need to be thinking about that in breeding programs. How well protected is your dog? Is this a coat that I want to, or a fat layer? Does my dog lay fat layers down? That will be inefficient in a lot of situations. You don't want big fluffy coats that will overheat, because you may still see those situations. But you do want to know that your dog is able to be insulated if something were to be where you were without your coats. I see people try to keep their sled load down and don't carry coats between checkpoints and just send them out. I don't do that anymore. You know, I've done that before, and I've wanted a coat, and I travel with coats. I may send fresh ones places so that in case I can't dry them out, I've got something I can substitute a fresh one on. But I always travel with some kind of protection for the dogs in the sleds just because of the weather that we've run into. And you know, that served me well because I got stuck in Shaktoolik. Martin and I were laughing about it. We said, we think more races have been stuck in Shaktoolik than have gone cleanly through Shaktoolik in the last 42 years of Iditarod, or 41 years. And you can be sure you're going to see bad weather somewhere along that coast, but to be stuck in Shaktoolik is not unusual. And I was just stuck out there in February, and we had a wind chill in the Paul Johnson race that was 150-some below. There was a cold weather traveling warning for all of the coast. There were only 9 teams in the race I was in. It was what we like to say jungle rules. It was, you know, basically no rules, except we couldn't take dogs inside. You know, it was mostly native drivers running it. Martin and I were running it as a training run. But it got so cold, Snow Machine wouldn't run, and they couldn't mark the trail. So they turned us back from Shaktoolik after they were unable to get the trail across to Koyuk. But there we were stuck in Shaktoolik for a couple of days. The wind was howling so bad, the straw that we had been provided was long since blown away. And it was a situation where putting 2 coats on the dogs, putting hot pockets inside a dog's coat to provide a warmer climate for them. Everything we were doing was making the amount of food we had. I mean, one of the drivers went with such little food that they couldn't feed their dogs till they opened the store and they could go in and buy some food from the native store. You know, and not only was that expensive, but, you know, that wasn't necessarily what the dogs were used to eating. So those situations I'm always in the back of my mind. And maybe the longer you've been on the trail, the more things you've seen go wrong, the more stuff you end up in your sled. I don't know. But, you know, I always like to share my experiences because, you know, when you're taking your Iditarod string of dogs to a race in February and you run into situations like that, you don't want them to get too skinny. You don't want frostbite. You don't want them to be discouraged. They're going to see that same trail in just 6 weeks from now. You want to have the ability to provide a good environment for them so that they'll look forward to going back out in it in just a few weeks from now. And that's where I think it's a real advantage to, I've heard people say, oh, the weather's so bad, I don't want to go training. The weather's never really too bad to go training. You may only need to train shorter, but to show them wind, to show them cold, to show them snow, to show them wet, to show them everything, so that you have a trust bond with them when you have to get into it. I showed them 150 below where they were having to, a wind chill, they had to lay down in, and then we had to turn and go back. And then when we ran the race, it was water to my waist. 42 above and raining on 6 feet of snow in 2 months period of time. So, you know, really what I had shown them in February was not what we raced in March, but it was the bond of getting through things that was the competitive advantage to taking them out and challenging them and things. There's Susan with her girls. One of the things, and I'll probably talk a little bit more about it tomorrow, but Iditarod has given me a pattern for life. Yet, just stopping when things go wrong is of no advantage. You know, if I just stop in a storm and out on the sea ice and just sit there, till what? What do I think is going to happen? You know, I mean, it's not, I mean, quitting provides nothing. And, you know, so I had to always kind of think of some way to get out of the situation I'm in. Problem solving, being tested and problem solving. But everything I've learned on the Iditarod Trail has really been a pattern for life. Because the problems that have really mattered, that have made a bigger difference in my survival till I'm going to be 60 in December, have been not on the Iditarod Trail. That's just been the pattern that have taught me the stick-to-itness, the advantage of moving on. And, you know, so that's one of the things that, you know, share years of the advantages of just moving on, because you can't just stop at the time. What are you going to do? that provides nothing. That provides no rest, no recovery, no nothing. And my dogs didn't deserve for me to quit, so I have to move on. And then I can decide to quit. But I can't just quit anytime I feel like it.